All right, we're back on the OBS. So the last time you guys saw this truck, I believe we were working on the dash. We've got the dash fit up in there. We're waiting on our gauges so we can build our panel up there. But since then, we've done engine panels. They look really kick-ass. We're doing a lot of work to the bed because the truck sits so low, this being a Stepside. We had to do some things back there to actually get it on the ground. So let's walk through it real quick. Check it out. All right, so on the front end where we've done all of our engine panels, we've got our rendering that Eric Brockmeyer did for us. We've kind of worked together to design that thing, and we built it pretty much to the rendering if you check it out. We've got all the nice little body line stuff. Check out our tight gaps running across through there. You don't really see any bolts or hardware, except the only ones are going to be right here. So these are temporary, just holding it in place. Here's kind of what we're going to do. This is a test piece that's pretty much going to be the pocket of our hood hinges. We've not done it yet because we're waiting on hood hinges, and my buddy over at Muncie Speed is building us a carbon fiber hood, which will be really cool, lightweight, but basically where these will bolt in, we're dimple dyeing it. So Hammer Fab has this really cool tool called the Crater Maker, and that's where you can drop a button head right into it like that, and that's where these will be right here. So far everything looks good. We had to notch out some of the hood to make it work like we wanted to, but with our carbon fiber one we're going to get, it's a lot thinner right here and it's finished out on the bottom. So initially when we were going to do a steel hood, we were going to metal panel the whole bottom side of this hood, which is a ton of work, so it's a good way that we can save a little time right there. But man, looks really kick-ass in here. Next thing we're doing on the front end, when we finish up on the back side of the truck, is we're going to start designing our grille to match the rendering as well. We've got some good ideas for that, so that's coming up soon. Let's check out the back. So there's a lot going on with the bed. Now, with the Roadstershop chassis, that's really cool under here. This truck lays really low. We've actually got it up a little bit right now. You can see we've raised the tops of these steps almost 2 inches. So we've started to fiberglass that back in. That's just a rough first coat. We've got it all into place, and then we're stripping this section with more fiberglass. Now what's nice about this, my dad's actually been in the fiberglass business for about 40 years, so I had him cut us some strips that were the thickness that we needed. And we're going to show you a little bit of getting into some of this fiberglass stuff. Another thing we've got going on is you can see that we've cut the steps off of it. Now, back in the 90s, companies used to make step shaver kits. So you would cut this off and you just fiberglass in this new panel, roll pan, all that. Well, they don't make them anymore. But I just so happened to post this truck on Instagram. A guy reached out. He bought a kit almost 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, and he still got it in the box, never used it. So we've been able to buy that from him. That's going to save us a ton of time. Another thing we have are these tail light shavers. If you look at the rendering, you can see we've got a lot going on in the back end. The tail lights are getting relocated to the back. Now, these aren't terrible to make, but they already have a body line. They've got a pretty good shape to them. You can see they fit right here. Now, the time it would take me to make these compared to the $38 they cost to buy them, I think it makes sense to buy them. So we're going to work those in. We're waiting on the step shaver kit to get here. What else do we have? What else did I say? Is that it? The next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and pull the bed off because we're going to start stripping the paint off of this thing. And what we're about to do is a long, slow, tedious process, and we obviously can't film all of it. But we're going to show you a little bit of what we do to prepare this for fiberglass, lay down a little fiberglass, maybe get a little paint off of it, and then once all the slow stuff's over, we'll pick it back up and hopefully do another video on it. So let's see if we can get the bed off. Boys! So I called everybody over. If you look around, you see the only one that's not here. You guess what he's probably doing right now? Oh wait, there he is. Glad you could grace us with your presence. Don't scratch the frame! Lift with your back and not your legs. I'd get some fancy shots of that right there. Been a minute since you've seen the Roadstershop chassis, so here's a little peek at it again. It's a really cool setup. So we've got our air ride here, we've got our ride sensors that are right there. The cool thing about the Roadstershop stuff is this one was already pre-powder coated. They assembled it for us. We've got our brake lines already ran, sway bars, we got the Camaro differential, Big Bear brakes, 24-inch wheels. Got our fuel system already set up for the LSX we've got up front. So man, this is one killer piece right here. So all right, let's see if we can get this thing out of here. know this doesn't look like much, but I've been stripping cars with this thing for over 20 years if we don't sandblast one. I'll tell you something. This is the most money-making stripper I know. All right, so what this is an 8-inch mud hog, what most people call it. And if we're not going to sandblast a vehicle, this is typically what we would use to do it. Now, since we're sitting on a chassis and there's not much to strip, I don't think there's any reason to blast it. And just like the woody wagon we have in the back, we don't want to blast it because, well, of all the wood, and we're trying to keep it on there. So this is a pretty quick way to get them down. We've been doing it this way a long time. We started out with 36 grit. So we're going to knock it down to bare metal. We don't have to get it like all the way down perfect because we're going to take a DA with 80 grit and then we'll get it nice and good bare metal. With this, I knocked the majority off of it pretty quick. So like I said, it takes a little while. So we'll do a little spot and I'll show you kind of what happens. You can see it starts eating it pretty quick. So you can see we already hit bare metal, so we'll do that through the whole thing. It's had a couple of paint jobs. That maroon is the factory color of the truck. So we've got bare metal, a sealer, the maroon. Then when they primed it, that looks like a gray high build primer. They blocked that down flat. Then it was painted white. Looks like another high build or a sealer. And then it had the pearl white on top. So it's been painted a couple of times. Mill thickness isn't too bad. I mean, you could probably check it with a mill gauge and still maybe could put another paint job over it, but we don't chance it. We take everything down to bare metal. So all right, so we got it down to bare metal. I'm gonna grab a mask, put that on, see if we can do the rest of it. I had to talk to you, so that's typically how it happens. But you want to wear a mask on this because this old paint is bad stuff and you don't want it in your lungs. So I think you get the idea. We pretty much stripped half the door in just a couple of minutes. It gets it down pretty quick. Like I said, once it's down to bare metal, we'll just buzz over this with a regular DA with 80 grit on it, and it'll get super nice where we can start working on it, put it in epoxy, do all that. But obviously I've got a long way to go, so let's go check out what Bob's doing on the bed, see if he's got some of that fiberglass work started. How much do you love fiberglass work?
I've heard they're hiring down the street at the McDonald's.
No, I've got that. I know how to fix this problem. I'll just scratch you while you do it.
There you go. Okay, that'll help. That'll help. I was going to look at my contract because I don't remember seeing anything about fiberglass.
You didn't read the fine print at the bottom.
I guess not.
All right, so what we're doing now, we've got that fiberglass strip and we've cut little sections, and you see these screws. We basically have this strip screwed to a couple of small fiberglass strips behind it. What Bob's doing right now, he's laying down resin over the top of it, then he's taking the mat, laying that down, and then he's making sure to really soak that mat all the way through. It's getting out all the air bubbles when you press it down. And what we're going to do first is just lay down a couple of sections in between the screws. Then we'll pull out the screws and we'll go back and we'll fiberglass the whole thing. That's going to help hold it in place nice where we want it. Also, if you had a tray of resin, you could just dip all of your pieces of mat in there. Also helps get rid of the air bubbles, helps you know you've got it soaked in there nice. But this is definitely not fun work. We try to stay away from, like we don't even want to do Corvettes anymore.
No.
We've basically told a lot of Corvette people that we don't want to do a Corvette because of the fiberglass. It's not fun.
But this is something small and different and cool, so
Yep.
on this truck, so we'll do a little fiberglass
Yep.
work.
And then those step shavers that we've got on the way, basically the same thing that happened with those. We'll fiberglass them on just like we're doing here, and it should be pretty cool. So also another slow process that we have to do, but you get the gist of what we're doing here. Gist? You get the gist? Gist. I don't think I've ever said it before. I think that's my first time. Do you get the gist?
No, I like the word picture.
Picture?
Picture.
You want to take some pictures?
The photographer guy.
Photographer and a picture.
Yeah.
So another important part of doing fiberglass work is you want to have everything beveled. So what Bob did, you can see these sections here. With this being a fiberglass bed, he's went through and he's ground this down. That's creating a low spot that we can start to build up from. A lot of times we'll do that on the back side as well. That way we'll have fiberglass on both, and it's super stout. So yeah, make sure you bevel all your pieces before you put them together, but it's looking good. Kind of get a good idea. And then when it's all said and done, it's painted, it's laid out on the ground. Anybody who, Bob made this point the other day, anybody who has one of these trucks who's tried to lay it out is going to look at it and go, how in the world were you able to lay it out like that, Stepside on 24s with that big of a tire?
Yep, that's going to be the trick part.
Look at the bed a little closer. That's right. All right, Bob, you're doing awesome.
Thank you.
Try not to get that in the floor if you would. We just want to paint a pretty picture. It can be anything you want it to be. Anywhere your imagination takes you. All right, just a little time later, we've got the step fiberglassed in, so you can tell everything's pretty well level now from the bevel, so it gives us a little more room. We can re-fiberglass this one more time, get it knocked down, start our body work, get it into primer. Waiting on our steps, so whenever they get here, we can do that too, but there you go. Hopefully next time we see it, maybe we'll be doing some body work.